Um, all the judges that Trump appointed last year are a national threat to America's national security. Now, on Monday, the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals issued a stunning decision transferring control over the Navy's special operation forces from the commander in chief to a single federal judge in Texas. The Fifth Circuit's decision marks an astonishing infringement on President Joe Biden's constitutional authority over the nation's armed forces, and basically directing him to follow the instructions of an unelected judge rather than his own admirals in deploying the Navy SEALs. The high-ranking military personnel have testified under oath that this power grab constitutes a direct threat to the Navy's operational abilities. As Russia invaded Ukraine and declares a nuclear alert, Donald Trump's judges are actively threatening America's national security systems. Like so many lawless cases in the Fifth Circuit, this dispute that began in the courtroom of the U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor, and Reed O'Connor was a notorious George W. Bush nominee. O'Connor is best known for attempting to abolish the Affordable Care Act back in 2018, then getting reversed by a 7-2 vote at the Supreme Court last year. So when 35 Navy Special Warfare Service members refused to comply with Biden's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for the armed forces, they brought their case to O'Connor. These service members, mostly Navy SEALs, all represented the far-right First Liberty Institute, and they claimed that their religious beliefs were being barred from them. They claimed that their religious beliefs barred them from getting the shots, which it does not. And some said that they heard divine instruction not to receive the vaccine. Yeah, bullshit. Others asserted that the Myrna vaccines altered the divine creation of their body by naturally inducing the production of spike proteins. Yeah, bullshit. O'Connor predictably sided against Biden, granting a preliminary injunction of staggering scope on the grounds that the mandate violates the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. He awarded himself sweeping authority over the assignment of the plaintiffs, forcing the Navy to deploy them with operational units. When several plaintiffs were denied transfer to a duty station, they asked O'Connor to sanction the government for allegedly violating his order. Basically, it was promptly ordered that the Justice Department explain why it should not be punished for failing to deploy these service members. O'Connor has not yet decided whether to impose these sanctions. Now, as we look at today, this lone judge continues to oversee the plaintiff's assignments, forcing the Navy to train, equip, and deploy unvaccinated troops with granular specificity as to their exact stations and duties. Never before in the history of the United States has one district court judge exercised so much control over the armed forces. The Constitution assigns this authority to Congress and the President. There are certainly legal limits on the executive discretion, which includes due process and constitutional safeguards against invidious discrimination. The right-wing lawyers have typically been loath to acknowledge any restrictions on the president's war powers. Now, indeed, the conservative legal movement has endorsed a near-limitless vision of the commander-in-chief. Republican presidents, lawyers, and judges have argued that the Constitution allows the president to deploy troops without approval, indefinitely detain enemy combats, and exclude entire cases of the classes of immigrants from the country. But now it seems they draw that line at a simple vaccination requirement, even though all service members were already required to have at least 9 vaccinations upon their enlistment. Or at least 9 vaccines anyway. Now, setting aside O'Connor's hypocrisy, O'Connor's order violated a fundamental principle of judicial restraint. Federal courts have long held that specific military assignments are never subject to judicial review. Now, O'Connor appears to be the first judge ever to rule that, in any fact, the courts can compel the armed forces to deploy a specific service member to a specific location to perform a certain duty. Now, if his court were in a sane circuit, this unprecedented intrusion on the president's power would be squashed upon almost instantly. O'Connor does not sit in a sane circuit. He sits in the Fifth. Now, this rogue court is now dominated by Trump judges, and it is breaking every rule to basically destroy Biden's presidency. The government's request for a stay landed in the laps of two infamous Trump judges, Stuart Kyle Duncan and Kurt Engelhart, along with Edith Jones, an infamously partisan Ronald Reagan nominee. In an unassigned opinion, this bristled with hostility against the COVID-19 vaccination. This panel agreed that the mandate violated religious liberty, which it didn't. Now, noting that most service members are vaccinated, the panel declared that the Navy lacks the paramount interest necessary to overcome anti-vaxxers' religious objections. Now, it questioned the efficacy of the vaccine, noting that the USS Milwaukee was sidelined in December of 2021 by a COVID-19 outbreak, despite having a fully vaccinated crew. Now, here's what was unmentioned. Unmentioned on this was the fact that the crew's vaccination status prevented even more transmission and serious illness. The panel then found out that the Navy would not be irreparably harmed by O'Connor's order, and it concluded that the public interest lies in keeping the plaintiffs unvaccinated. Now, these last two assertions, that both the Navy and the American people are better off with O'Connor's continued supervision of unvaccinated special forces, is not just fucking wrong, it's fucking dangerously delusional. In support of the mandate, the Justice Department filed 5 declarations from high-ranking Navy officers like Admiral Daryl L. Caudle, the Vice Admiral William Mertz, Captain Jun Yoon, Rear Admiral Gail Schaefer, and Captain Christopher Brown. Now, these leaders explained that O'Connor's order poses a direct threat to the military's readiness and lethality. Now, service members in the Navy, they wrote, live in extremely close quarters and they live in extremely close quarters with one another for lengthy periods of time. The outbreak on a ship or submarine can thwart an entire mission. O'Connor's reasoning was that the incremental impact of adding a few unvaccinated members is thus incorrect and dangerous logic. Now, with each additional unvaccinated member, the risk to personnel and risk to mission increases exponentially and unacceptably. The mandate is thus the most effective and readily available tool that the armed forces has to protect the vital United States national interest. Now, to put it simply, the less people who are vaccinated, the less ready the Navy is to deter aggression, and if required, fight and win in a combat. The bottom line is this. These admirals and captains testified is that the COVID-19 vaccine is keeping ships at sea. Now, the submarines on patrol and the aircrafts that are flying to protect and defend the nation's and our partners and allies' interest. Now, forcing the Navy to deploy unvaccinated members puts the nation's ability to respond to crises around the world at unnecessary and self-inflicted risk. The military leaders also testify that O'Connor's order had grievously undermined the chain of command. In the deadly business of protecting our national security, they wrote this: "We cannot have a sailor who disobeys a lawful order to receive a vaccine because they harbor a personal objection any more than we can have a sailor who disobeys the technical manual for operating a nuclear reactor because he or she believes that they fucking know better. Our success, our national security, and the safety of our people depends on instinctive compliance with orders." O'Connor's injunction invites service members to challenge a commander's professional military judgment, whether it concerns training, assignment of duties, or other everyday orders essential to the Navy's mission that they might find to be objectionable. The Fifth Circuit shrugged off this testimony, substituting expert judgment with its own whims. Its decision opens the door to a significant escalation. The plaintiffs have asked O'Connor to extend his injunction to an entire class of Navy anti-vaxxers, exempting up to 4,000 service members from the mandate and seizing control of the deployment orders. Now, if the Supreme Court does not put a stop to this subversion, O'Connor appears poised to bite off an exponentially bigger chunk of Biden's authority. And while the world inches closer toward the possibility of a nuclear war with Russia and Ukraine, O'Connor, Jones, Duncan, and Engelhart are sabotaging the Navy's ability to fight. If this judicial assault on military readiness during a violent global conflict does not run afoul of the Commander-in-Chief's constitutional powers, it's hard to imagine what the fuck would. Now, if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King, and you can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you could contribute to my Patreon page, which you can find in the About section of my YouTube channel. and just donate. And you can donate as just a little as a few bucks for the month. There you go.